Hello, and welcome to coverage of custom standard casual matches. I'm Caillou, and today we're going to be watching a match between Philippe Saner, who is on red-white arm, and Reuben, otherwise known as Doombringer, who seems to be on red-black mid-range, or perhaps red-black reanimator. So Philippe's deck, we know what it is because he's played it before quite a few times. Essentially, it's an aggro deck which aims to leverage a late game plan thanks to the titular mechanic arm. So what arm is you create an equipment which gives +1/+1 and has an equip cost of 2 and attach it to the creature. Um, and essentially this deck has lots of ways to leverage additional arm tokens to grow your creatures big so that they still have like relevance in the late game, which is usually the two biggest things that aggro decks have trouble with are card advantage, which this deck has Burning Revelations, which is a browbeat variant, um, and currency, which can sack arm tokens for cards, and its creatures being like blocked out by larger creatures when an opponent stabilizes, which the arm tokens themselves help with getting over larger creatures, or with stuff like Aerial Gunner, which has flying, to be able to just essentially like go over your opponent. So it looks like Reuben is actually on red-black reanimator, uses Tormenting Voice to discard Izalith Great Flame Witch. So Izalith Great Flame Witch is the primary reanimation target um, in Custom Sound right now because of a combo she has with a card called Reemergence. So Reemergence is 1 black for return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, but you return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. So Izalith, her ability lets you, when she attacks, you can sacrifice her to, or like you can despair her, which means sacrifice at the end of turn, to search your library for a demon and put her onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. So Reemergence turns into essentially, even though it's supposed to be like a 1-turn reanimation spell, it turns into 3 mana, grab a demon from your deck, and then usually dome your opponent for 6. So on Philippe's end of the table, he's played a Rotting Hellhound. This is the premier 1-drop aggro creature in the format because it's a 1-drop haste. It doesn't have 1 toughness, which lets it get around lots of things and also profitably block in like the aggro mirror. And it also serves as an anthem in the late game to like push through damage. The other card Philippe's played so far is Conscription. So this is a discovery, which are basically sagas which on the last stage, instead of sacrificing themselves for a large effect, they stay as a static effect. So Conscription creates tokens with Vigilance, which is already good. 2 tokens with Vigilance for 2 mana is a pretty good rate. But then it also allows you to buff a creature each combat. So, and it gives you enchantment synergies if you need them. For example, Serve the Empire has a mechanic called Civilized on it. Normally it's just 1 mana enchantment that says creatures can't attack, or like enchanted creature can't attack. But if you have Civilized, which means you have a creature, enchantment, and an artifact, then it turns into a straight up pacifism for 1 mana, which is really good. And also, not being able to activate activated abilities is very relevant in the meta right now. Other bombs that Philippe has right now, like Philippe's hand is just kind of full of good stuff. Like Havel is just an insane card. It's a 3/3 for 3, which is, decent rate on its own, but it gets +1/+1 for each equipment you control. Not even ones that are attached to him, each equipment you control. And it makes equip cost that you pay 0, so you can shuffle around lots of your arm tokens when you create them. Put them on a single evasive creature like Aerial Gunner, or like move them around without having to spend mana so you have more profitable attacks, stuff like that. And Liberated Armory is another, like this deck is like loaded up on 3 drops, as you can see. So Philippe's going to cast Liberated Armory. What it does is every creature that enters the battlefield ends up becoming armed, so it comes in with a +1/+1 token, or +1/+1 equipment token. Liberated Army being 3 does make it have like some awkward curves, like Conscription. You would ideally have liked to cast that like after Liberated Armory, but Philippe didn't draw into a 2-drop until, not like an alternative 2-drop until this turn. So on end step, Reuben is going to be casting Incendiary Revel. So It's essentially 3 mana, deal 2 damage at instant speed, which is a very bad rate because normally you'd be like Shock does that for 1 mana. Its real strength comes in its ability to have like iterate a value over time by you can pay 5 mana, exile it from your grave, deal 4 damage to any target, or pay 7 mana to deal 6 damage to any target. So what you use this with is there's a demon called Ceaseless Discharge, which you add 8 red mana at the start of each main phase. So Incendiary Revel serves as like a mana sink for that ability, and lets you dome people. So like once you use Islets to grab Ceaseless Discharge from your deck, you can use Incendiary Revel to pay, or like you can dump the mana that Ceaseless Discharge creates into Incendiary Revel to hopefully dome your opponent, or if they have a troublesome board, clean that up a little bit. So Reuben's going to tap 3 for Trusty Patches. So Patches is essentially like a planeswalker like made for like a reanimator shell. The first ability can really be used to like ditch like reanimation targets. The second ability turns him into like a sulfuric vortex, which is very good for like some aggro and mid-range decks. And the final ability is just good, like especially with effects where you can like selectively exile cards from graveyards, you can get like the most value out of him. So Reuben's in a really good position right now. He has 2 wipes, so that could pretty much deal with most of the things that Philippe can do here. Like Philippe is probably going to tap out. Okay, he's going to tap out for Aerial Gunner. Interesting. So it's going to come in with 2 +1/+1 counters. So it attacks as a 3/3 flying haste, which does hurt. Reuben needs to get up to 5 mana to be able to kill it, so needs 1 more land. But having Journey's End as well, so if Reuben draws into another reanimation target, has a good way to dump it while also killing something. But yeah, so having 2 wipes in an aggro matchup really has to feel good. And Philippe does have Burning Revelations, but if Reuben kills if Reuben top decks a land here, and manages to kill all of Philippe's creatures, Philippe won't be able to tithe it. So essentially what that means is tithe is a mechanic where you can tap 3 creatures and/or artifacts to get an extra effect. In this case, it's copying Burning Revelations twice, which is a very powerful effect. And Reuben does top deck a land. I think it does make sense here to just Vibrant Rapture X equals 3, kill both of the soldiers and Aerial Gunner. You get 3 petals, and then still has Journey's End up, but I think you'd rather hold up the Vibrant Rapture and bait out something. And then if Reuben does that, Philippe's only play here is to cast Havel, or has Founding Hero now, and that might be like a safer play. But I think actually it doesn't really matter. Like Founding Hero or Havel are Philippe's like only plays here. So it's gonna tap 3, so it's gonna play Havel. Immediately makes it a 5/5. So, or actually, sorry, if Philippe equips the equipment, it'll actually go up to a 7/7 because they'll get +1/+1 from the weapons, and then +1/+1 from Havel's own ability. Oh, and Liberated Armory. Yeah, that's insane. So yeah, so I think what's gonna happen is Reuben is going to draw a card because Vibrant Rapture is it's pretty important in this matchup. You want to hold on to it if you can because Philippe's deck has lots of cards that can just like start flooding the board. Like there's a card called Passionate Congregation, which if you tithe it, you create 4 1/1 haste cleric tokens, which because of Liberated Army, they would all come in as 2/2s. So you'd really want to save Vibrant Raptor for that. And since Havel doesn't have haste, yeah, not going to spend the Journey's End on Havel on the end step, but I think just playing Journey's End, discarding Fangmark Cave to kill Havel makes sense. But if Reuben wants to get greedy and start like going on the aggro, could like play Fangmark Cave and then Journey's End Havel on Philippe's turn. If at any point Philippe draws into another land, Burning Revelations really is going to hurt because Philippe can now, with the extra equipment token, can tithe it at any time, and Reuben can't really like pay enough life to it safely, so we'll probably just have to eat like a bunch of let Philippe hold on to a bunch of cards. And yeah, Philippe does get the land there. So now it's a question of, yeah, okay, so it's going to attack with Havel. I think if you're Reuben, you have to, yeah. So it's going to Journey's End, discarding the Vibrant Rapture. So Havel dies. Main two, so the question is, will Philippe play Founding Hero or will Philippe play Burning Rev? Um, I think playing Founding Hero makes a lot of sense here. Because Reuben is okay. Actually, he's not going to do that. It's gonna since Burning Revelation is instant speed, gonna just wait. And Reuben just top decks a land. Um, does have Reuben does have Fangmar Cave, so actually maybe playing the Founding Hero wouldn't be good against that. Um, because uh, essentially Hakbora would just be bigger than it. But Burning Rev in response to a Hakbora trigger, or like Fangmar Cave trigger, which makes you pay half your life, is really good because it limits Reuben's options so much. So yeah, so this is done after the pay half your life trigger, so Reuben is down to 7 life. Um, so Reuben can take 5 damage and Philippe can draw 6 cards, or Reuben can take no damage and Philippe can draw 9 cards, which is pretty insane. I think taking the 5 damage doesn't make sense because if at any point Philippe, in any of the 6 cards Philippe draws, he draws into a Passionate Congregation, you just die. So yeah, and we do see a Passionate Congregation right here. So Philippe is going to draw 9 cards here, hitting another Burning Revelations. Oh no, an attack. Ugh. Yeah, if Reuben attacks with Hakbora here, Reuben loses next turn because Passionate Congregation. Okay, so Philippe's going to take 6, but next turn, Philippe plays Passionate Congregation, tides it. Liberated Army makes each of the haste tokens into 2/2s, swings for 8. Reuben dies on the spot. I think Passionate Congregation is like the most important thing to be aware of in the matchup because it's the most swingy thing. There's also Mecha Dragon, but Mecha Dragon is like there's basically you need to have removal. There's less ways to interact with it. So yeah, tapping 3. I was gonna play Havel. I think that this is a misplay on Philippe's part. Because if Philippe had just Passionate Congregation, uh he could have killed Reuben on the spot. Or I guess this also works because Havel equipped Quelaag's Fury Sword, and then the Havel becomes a 6/6, and then Quelaag's Fury Sword deals 1 damage to any target, so you attack for 6, ping Reuben for 1. And of course, Havel actually had like a bunch more +1/+1 from the weapon tokens, so wouldn't even need the ping 1. So good game to Philippe, and Philippe takes game 1 over Reuben. Let's see what the sideboarding goes. Philippe still doesn't know what Reuben is on. I feel like this is because Philippe is relatively new to custom standard, and so seeing Izalith patches, all that. Izamerge was like a big deck back in the day as like a combo deck that could kind of just like eat up some of the slower plans that people were on. These days, with a lot more like Grave Hate and like main deck answers to what Izamerge is doing, it's a lot harder to actually combo off and win. But it's still like a solid like anti-meta option. Okay, getting into game 2 here. We see Reuben is sideboarded into Sorin, Lord of Vengeance. Though this hasn't seen much play recently, it used to be one of the best planeswalkers in the format and one of the best anti-aggro planeswalkers, believe it or not, at 5 mana. Being able to just like machine gun down creatures while also gaining life was huge. These days the creatures are a little bit bigger, and Sorin having like reasonably low loyalty kind of just hurts it, but it's still like a strong option against like this kind of aggro, which sometimes features like go wide or small elements. Also has Data Demon, interesting. Um, Data Demon is a card that hasn't seen much play, and I'm actually kind of surprised it's in this build. if like I don't think you can expect to out aggro Philippe. Meanwhile, on Philippe's end of the table, has a pretty good curve. Um, you go turn 2 Hunter Seeker, or turn 1 play Imperial Barracks, reveal Zephyr Peak, play Founding Hero. Turn 2 play Hunter Seeker. Hope to draw to third land so you can play Havel, and then at some point hope to like get something to where you can like start generating weapon token or like generate weapon tokens with Hunter Seeker and then use that to tide Passionate Congregation. So you have turn 1, gonna play the Imperial Barracks, reveal the Zephyr Peak, play Founding Hero. Um, yeah, I don't know if this is a curve Reuben can beat. Especially like Reuben's like I think Data Demon seems like a real sus choice, especially since like you're gonna be eating like so much card disadvantage because of that beginning of your upkeep upload 2 cards. Like Journey's End is already like really risky in this deck because you can run out of gas like super quick. Um and Demon just seems to like exacerbate that same problem. So Philippe gonna swing in for 2. Oh, Zephyr Peak comes in. Oh, I forgot about the restriction on Zephyr Peak. So Philippe won't actually be able to play um, Hunter Seeker until next turn. Also hasn't hit a third land, so can't play Havel or Aerial Gunner either. Ooh, and a sideboard Flamestorm from Reuben. This will kill Havel without any equipment on the board. It will kill an Aerial Gunner. It kills basically everything in the deck that isn't armed up, which, is kind of like a small hope, but it's still like the best sweeper, or like one of the best anti-aggro sweepers in the format. Also has a reemergence, which means as soon as Reuben gets a reanimation target, can ditch it to Journey's End, or ditch it with Journey's End, and then reemergence it. Oh, and Philippe top decks the third land. He's going to continue to chip in with the Founding Hero. I guess that means it's not going to play Aerial Gunner this turn. Probably going to play Hunter Seeker, and then play Havel next turn. I could definitely see, because I think playing Hunter Seeker this turn, and then you start like next turn you can like attack with it and start generating equipment tokens, and then okay, no, I guess it's just gonna start by playing Havel because 3/3 body is better than a 2/1 body, I guess. Or I guess another reason could be that like you play Havel this turn, you play Aerial Gunner next turn, Havel attacks as a 4/4. Instead, Reuben's gonna do the preemptive Flamestorm. I'm gonna 2-for-1 Philippe. I think it's smart to do that now before Havel gets bigger, and you just have to kind of rely on them not having more Havel. Unfortunately for Reuben, Philippe does have a second Havel plus an Aerial Gunner, and if he ever chooses to deploy the Data Demons, Philippe can just like serve the Empire it. Of course, doesn't have Civilized yet, so it won't do much good, but it can like keep Reuben from putting on the beats. So Philippe is just going to play another Havel and pass, and there's an Isolith. So I think Reuben's plan should just be um, pass on Philippe when Philippe attacks with Havel, uh, ditch Isolith, Journey's End, kill Havel, and then next turn can reemergence and go off. So yeah, Reuben is just going to pass right there. No reason to play out the Journey's End on his own turn. So Philippe is going to play the Aerial Gunner, can now attack for beefy 6 this turn. 4 from the Havel, 2 from the Aerial Gunner. So Reuben's probably just going to take the 2 from the Aerial Gunner and then kill Havel right here. Because Havel really is the most dangerous card in Philippe's deck, like by far. Like Burning Revelations and Mecha Dragon are also scary because of how, and like Passionate Congregation, but Passionate Congregation requires you to have Liberated Armory for it to really be good. And Burning Rev requires Tithe, just like lots of little stuff, while Havel just grows like incredibly quickly, and he's just a good base body on its own. Anyways, what we missed was Reuben did play Journey's End, discarding Isolith to destroy Havel, and is now gonna play. Okay, actually, a Vacated Bar comes in tapped. I was gonna say Reuben has a choice of playing Sorin right here and then killing Aerial Gunner, but instead is just gonna reemergence. And next turn has access to Sorin as well. So Reemergence brings back Isolith from the graveyard. She's now going to attack in Despair. and Reuben can search his library for a demon and put it onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. So there's a few. I think there's also a 7-drop demon which allows you to Thoughtseize plus gain life on ETB. So Reuben might get that one. It also has flying and trample. It's very good. And I think in an aggro matchup, that's the one you want to search for instead of Ceaseless Discharge. Oh, get Centipede Demon. Interesting. So it essentially has Edict plus discard a card mode. So Philippe loses the Aerial Gunner and is going to lose a card from his hand. Yeah, discards a Hanaru Spear. Equipment is a little bit more win more when you don't have much on the board. This Serve the Empire on the Centipede Demon will be really useful next turn because Philippe is taking a whopping 13 damage here, and so will be dead next turn if he didn't have the removal with Serve the Empire. So probably Serve the Empire, Hunter Seeker is just a good play next turn. So on end, returns Izalith to his hand. Interesting interaction is that Despair lets you, so you can choose which order the triggers happen, the Despair trigger or the Reemergence returning to your hand. So if you had like another Reemergence, you could just let Izalith go to the graveyard because of her Despair trigger. But since Reuben has 5 lands and doesn't have another reanimation spell, it makes sense to return Izalith to your hand. So Philippe top decked a land, so probably just still make the same play of like serve the Empire on the Centipede Demon and then play Hunter Seeker. So yep, gonna serve the Empire to the Centipede Demon. Yep, just play out the Hunter Seeker. So next turn I think Reuben plays Izalith and then just passes. Actually no, could play Sorin here. Could play Sorin, kill the Hunter Seeker, gain some life, and then play Izalith the turn after that. That's definitely like a reasonable line. I think it's a safer line too. Playing Izalith here though does win the game next turn, assuming that Philippe doesn't have removal. Because even if is going to play Sorin and is going to kill the Hunter Seeker with the +2, so and gain 2 life. This is why Sorin is like such an amazing stabilization tool because now it can just pseudo lock the game unless like Philippe draws a Havel. Havel is the only creature I think big in the deck big enough to get out of Sorin range. So has a few options here. Can't hide the Burning Revelations, and Reuben will probably just take the 5. So probably just plays the Aerial Gunner here, and then tries to build up like, and maybe like get another weapon token somehow next turn, depending on what he top decks, and then can start tiding the Passionate Congregation. Okay, the Aerial Gunner comes in. It's basically just a weapon token, deal 2 damage to Sorin, because if Philippe attacks Faith, actually it doesn't matter what Philippe does with the Aerial Gunner, because if Philippe attacks Sorin, then like the Sorin will get the loyalty back just by plus doing next turn to kill the Aerial Gunner. If Philippe attacks face, Sorin's +2 will just gain back the life. So Philippe is in a really like unenviable position here. So yeah, I think if you're Reuben right now, I think you just play or do you play Data Demon because it has flying and that means that no, either way it doesn't matter. I think you just play. I think it's a trade-off, but basically plays either Data Demon or Izalith depending on Reuben's valuation. Okay, he's gonna play tapping 3, so he's gonna play Data Demon, and then just gonna +2 Sorin on the Aerial Gunner to kill it, and then this leaves Philippe dead next turn. Okay, so Philippe's just saying, hey, I have no outs, concedes. I think top deck Serve the Empire could be an out, but then had no way to deal with the Sorin. And then Reuben was just building, like, I guess what you could hope for is that you could hope for Reuben to lose cards to Data Demon and then not have an answer to a resolved Havel. And then you get Havel plus, if you get like a perfect set of top decks, like, I guess even with the perfect set of top decks, Reuben had like 3 more threats in hand. So that game was pretty over. But from where Philippe was standing, depending on what Reuben had in hand, a top deck Serve the Empire could, like from Philippe's perspective there, might have gotten him out of the situation. So anyways, we're going directly into a game 3. Another good curve for Philippe here. Turn 1, Plains Founding Hero. Turn 2, Mountain Conscription. Turn 3, or actually you can choose whether, Philippe could choose whether he wants turn 2 Conscription or turn 3 Havel. Meanwhile, on Reuben's side, turn 1, Duress feels pretty awful right here, but I guess it can grab like removal spells. If so, this also makes an interesting thing, because if Philippe chooses, so there's like something with sequencing here. So if Reuben plays Vacated Bar here instead of the Swamp, Reuben can't turn 1 Duress, but then that'll give him access to turn 2 Soothsaying. Or actually, so now that the next Swamp makes this choice a lot easier. So he's going to Duress, grab the Conscription. Philippe doesn't have a turn 2 play, so Philippe plays Zephyr Peak next turn, and then does turn 3 Havel. But yeah, I think instead of Duress, playing something like Into the Lion's Den would be better here, because unconditional hand attack is much better in this meta, in my opinion. So yeah, it's just going to grab the Conscription. Oof, and Philippe top decks to serve the Empire. I think that's really what Reuben was hoping to hit here, because you don't want your opponent to have any way to disrupt you once you get the Reemerge combo. So turn 2 Dark Soothsaying and then a potential turn 3 Reemergence if Reuben top decks another land is a very good raid. Dark Soothsaying, though, does have the downside of like shocking yourself, so versus aggro is kind of risky. So I guess Reuben's not going to do it right now. It's going to pretend to have, because Philippe hasn't seen Dark Soothsaying yet, and Philippe is evidently unfamiliar with the deck, so Philippe is just going to assume a Journey's End. So this could like make Philippe do some weird plays. But really here I think you just want to straightforwardly like play out the Havel and force them to have it. Because Reuben like emphatically does not have it right now. And well, Reuben has Vibrant Rapture, but that's very different. So yeah, just gonna play the Havel. Reuben will not have enough lands to Vibrant Rapture X equals 5 for a while, so needs to dig for Journey's End right here. So it's gonna Dark Soothsaying. So the advantage of Dark Soothsaying is like not only can you dig for something you want to put into your hand, since the other cards go into the graveyard, it's a really easy way to like dump reanimation fodder. So like if Reuben hits an Izalith here and has a land like that Dragon's Code Summit, could grab the land and then what did Reuben bin? Bin to Journey's End and a Flamestorm. I'm very surprised by getting a land over either of those. So top decks an Incendiary Revel, so can now Revel the Founding Hero. But I really thought Reuben would grab the Journey's End to kill the Havel, because Havel is just the scariest thing in the deck. And like, or Flamestorm, because Flamestorm lets you, I guess Reuben doesn't have the mana for Flamestorm. So yeah, just Journey's End. I'm really surprised Reuben didn't grab Journey's End there. And now Reuben's on a 3-turn clock, because Reuben top decked the Incendiary Revel, but then Reuben didn't know that was going to happen. So, but yeah, now can Incendiary Revel, kill the Founding Hero, or could get fancy and could Vibrant Rapture X equals 1 to get a Petal, and then use that as like pseudo ramp. But no, it's just going to go to end. So it's probably just going to Incendiary Revel the Founding Hero, and then just leave Havel to his own devices. So Philippe top decks a Rotting Hellhound. Probably not going to try and Despair it here, but then that just adds like another damage here. So Reuben is going to take 4, go down to 10. So Philippe is basically just top decking at this point, but having that one of Serve the Empire keeps Reuben comboing off from being a wash. Okay, so he's going to attack with everything. If you're Reuben, you probably just Revel the Founding Hero right here. I think another reason to grab Flamestorm could be the line of like Vibrant Rapture X equals 1 to kill the Founding Hero, and the next turn Flamestorm to kill Havel and whatever else Philippe plays. But Reuben might have like not seen that. But yeah, just Incendiary Revel to Founding Hero. Still will not have enough mana here to be able to Vibrant Rapture to kill Havel, and doesn't have an answer for Havel, which is why, again, um, grabbing the Journey's End was so important there, and I'm very confused as to why Reuben chose not to do that. Because now Reuben is left with like no good plays, has Dark Soothsaying, but then that'll just like tick down 2 more life, and next turn he's gonna take like a minimum of 4. So Reuben's just like in a really bad spot here. Oh, and a passionate congregation is gonna make this way worse. Um, so Philippe is gonna play passionate congregation untithed probably, yeah, and is gonna attack for. Let's actually see. Does he have lethal? So Despair's Rotting Hellhound. So that's 1, 4. Yeah, this is lethal. Or no, sorry, it's a one-off lethal because it's 4, 8, 9. Reuben goes down to 1 life. Next turn needs to top deck a land to be able to Vibrant Rapture X equals 3, otherwise he loses. I actually think that Philippe despairing here was a mistake because um, right here he could have dealt he would have dealt enough, like he would have dealt 6 damage that would have put Reuben down to 4, and then next turn could have attacked for lethal anyways. So it's a 2-turn clock either way, and if you don't despair here, you don't lose the Rotting Hellhound. And wow, what a lucky top deck for Reuben. Gets the swamp, can now Vibrant Rapture X equals 3 and wipe Philippe's entire board. Yep, and if Philippe doesn't, so this is kind of like a tension here, because if Philippe top decks, a haste creature, Reuben loses. But if not, Reuben can play Sorin and start ticking up to like, uh, ooh, and that's a founding hero, so it doesn't have haste. So next turn, Reuben can play Sorin, +2 on the founding hero to kill it, and then gain 2 life, and then can start stabilizing from there. So yep, here comes Sorin. So now Sorin's gonna +2, kill the founding hero. Reuben goes up to 3 life. So it all comes down to what Philippe top decks here. Otherwise, Reuben just runs away with this game. Passionate Congregation is good. Even untithed, you deal 2 damage here. Sorin kills one of them, but then you can deal another damage to face and then hope to draw something else. Like you at least get to keep one of the creatures, is what this means. So hasters are good here. What this also does is it means that Reuben can't safely Dark Soothsaying on end. Ooh, Data Demon is a clock. And Reuben doesn't really care about any of their other cards in his hand other than Vibrant Rapture. So he's gonna +2 Sorin to kill one of the cleric tokens. And then is probably gonna play the Data Demon to start having a real clock. And Data Demon is also, yeah, Data Demon's also a good play because if Philippe top decks like another Passionate Congregation, you lose on the spot. Data Demon gives you a blocker. Unfortunately, if Philippe top decks another Passionate Congregation here, you can Passionate Congregation, serve the Empire. Oh no, because serve the Empire won't have Civilized, so Data Demon will still be able to block. And top decks a land. So I guess you just serve the Empire on Data Demon, just so like you can avoid a clock. But and then like attack 1 to Reuben's face. Oh, Philippe is just going to concede right here. Doesn't really have a good way to deal with Sorin. So yeah, good games to both players. And Reuben on Black-Red Izamergence takes a 2-1 over Philippe Sonaire on Red-White Arm.